Janet Kennedy, we'll begin with you. Just 1.5 minutes to introduce yourself and why you're running and who you are.
Thank you, Chuck. Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here today. My name is Janet Kennedy, and I'm running for City Council in District 5. I've been a lifelong resident of Western Duluth. I currently own a home where I've lived for 19 years and raised my children there. And it's been a great place to live. I love Western Duluth and very passionate about that part of the city. Currently, I'm the co-chair and co-founding member of the Cross Cultural Alliance of Duluth. I've worked 23 years in the physical therapy field, with my last job being a program director at a local rehab center. I currently serve on the Planning Commission, as well as the Public Health and Human Services Advisory Committee, as well as working on health equity issues in Duluth. And so I'm running really because talking to neighbors, I found out there's a lot of things that need to happen, and very most importantly is because it's time. And I'll just read a little bit of what I wrote. It's time to be a counselor who is fully committed to get the job done for Western neighborhoods. It's time for a counselor who is reliable, who will be there when the important decisions are made. It's time for a counselor who knows how to find solutions. It's time for a counselor who will say no when it's necessary, but will say yes to the things that will improve our lives. And finally, it's time for a city councilor who will work with leaders at the federal, state, and local level to make sure that Western neighborhoods don't get left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. M. Westerland, and we'll ask the candidates please share the microphone. We only have a couple.
My name is M. Westerland. I'm running to represent Duluth's 3rd District on the Duluth City Council. I was born and raised in Superior, just over the bridge, and graduated from high school there. I left the Twin Ports to go to college, and when I graduated, I returned and attended grad school at UMD. And I've been a native Twin Portsian my whole life. Very excited to have this opportunity to represent the concerns of my neighbors in the 3rd District. As many of you know, District 3 is a very diverse district. There are a lot of distinct neighborhoods with distinct concerns and also distinct opportunities for the future. And people are very engaged, they're very excited about the future of Duluth, they're very excited about the future of their neighborhoods. And as I've been door knocking, that's something I've heard continually. People want to feel heard, they want to feel like they have an advocate and somebody that they can speak to who will communicate those concerns and ideas and thoughts on the council as important decisions are made. And I think that's why I'm a great candidate to represent the 3rd District. I've been an advocate my whole life in a variety of capacities. Many summers as a Girl Scout camp counselor at Camp Rondelay here. Beyond that, working for an AmeriCorps program addressing the achievement gap in Minnesota, and several years now at PAVSA, the Program for Aid to Victims of Sexual Assault, where I currently work. And I think a city councilor at their best is an advocate for the people that they represent, and that's my hope and intention. My partner Laura and I are proud Central Hillsiders, and we're proud to represent the neighborhood and the district, hopefully you all on the council. Thanks.
Thank you. Gary Anderson.
Good morning. My name is Gary Anderson, and I am seeking the 1st District City Council seat. I want to thank our hometown newspaper, the Duluth News Tribune, and the Chamber of Commerce for their service in hosting this forum, and thank everyone else for being here this morning. I'm running because I believe I can be an effective and powerful advocate for the people of the 1st District. I've been knocking doors since June, and what I've been hearing over and over and over again is a sense of optimism in our community, and the people in our community, the business people in our community, want us to continue building for our future. I grew up on a farm in Floodwood. I left Minnesota in my early 20s. I was away for many years, and during those years, I gained a lot of experience managing several different small businesses. I was also a UPS man in New York City for 11 years. Problem solving and collaborating to get the job done is what I do. I came back to Minnesota in 2002 and began a new career teaching yoga, and I've been doing that here in the Northland for 13 years. I love my work, I love my community. In 2012, my life changed really dramatically when I became the lead organizer in Duluth for the Minnesota United for All Families campaign. That work taught me in a big way that I can make a difference in our community. The people in the 1st District are amazing. Our neighborhoods are strong. Our business community is resilient. The time is now. Let us continue building for our future. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Gary. Carl Spring.
Hello everybody, I'm Carl Spring. I see a lot of friendly faces here today. I don't know all of you, but you all are friendly. And I'm glad you're here. I'm from Hopkins, Minnesota originally. Last time I was here in this room was January 3rd of this year. My daughter Carly was married here to her husband Jeff. So this is a very blessed place for me. I want to say good morning to my wife Lynn, and also to my son Cal, who I know is listening. Cal, I love you. And also to all my kids and my stepkids. They're with me here today too. The main thing I want to accomplish here at City Council is that I hate wasting money. I really do. I spent 27 years as a TV meteorologist, predicting the future. You know, news and sports are easy to talk about things that have already happened. In weather, you predict the future. That's tougher. But I've been working at Kohler Chevrolet now for almost 6 years. I negotiate about 500 deals a year. My goal is to find something between wants and needs. And I hate to waste money. That's what I want to help with the city of Duluth. I want to help the city do things that are good for the majority of the people. I don't like pet projects that waste time and money. We have 86,000 people here. I want to work for the good of the many over the good of the few or the one. Do what helps the most of us. We peaked in population in 1960 to 106,000 people. Now we have 86,000. We're coming back up slowly. I want to see Duluth grow, and I want to see Duluth grow right for the majority of people who live here. Thank you for being here. Tomorrow, sunny and 58. Right? Your extended forecast coming up.
Thank you. Carl?
I'm sorry? What district, please?
You know, I'm way better at 8 p.m. than 8 a.m. Sorry, you're right. I'm also running for City Council District 1. Since then, Gary. Good question, thank you.
Joel Cypress.
Hi, my name is Joel Cypress, and for the last couple of years I've had the privilege to represent the 2nd District on the Duluth City Council. I was appointed to fill a council vacancy, and I'm running to retain my seat this November. I want to thank the Chamber and the News Tribune for allowing me to participate in the first part of this forum. I do need to leave for my job in about a half an hour, but I think it's extremely important that I participate in this forum for as long as I can, even though I'm running unopposed this November. The reason for that is these sorts of forums are one of the most important ways that elected officials make themselves accountable to the public, and it's vital, and as councilors have an obligation to participate in these kinds of forums as much as they can and to the extent that they can. As a councilor representing a district, my most important job is to provide effective representation to the people in my district, and I've worked very hard to do that these last couple of years, and I look forward to continuing that work. But a district councilor also has an obligation to represent and work on citywide issues. We've had a lot of good things happen in Duluth these last few years, and I think we all know that, but we have challenges ahead. The challenge of how to continue to make progress on our aging infrastructure, and above all, the need to make sure that all Duluthians can benefit from our recent economic growth. I look forward to working with the community to address those challenges. Thanks.
Great, thank you, candidates. Let's get to some questions. And Ms. Westerlund, we'll start with you. You touched on it in your opening statement, but your district perhaps is the most diverse in the city. You have nearly palatial properties on Park Point to single-room apartments in the hillside. What unique challenges does that create for you as a city council representative?
Well, thanks for the question. It's actually one of the key things that I've been hearing on the doors is housing. So when you look at the district, of special concern to folks in the Central Hillside is the fact that most of our affordable housing for the city that is classified as such is located in the Central Hillside. So there's a lack of choice for people so far as where they would hope to live throughout the city. And it's great that we have the affordable housing that we do. However, we do need to have more. So we know that we have people waiting for Section 8 vouchers up to 2 years after they get a voucher, and then the crunch time where they have 60 days to locate a property that will accept that voucher. It's problematic, and the housing market is such that there's often not an available property, and so that voucher goes back into rotation. That person is left again waiting. So for folks who are homeless or in danger of being homeless or experiencing poverty, that's a key issue. On the flip side, We have a gap in market rate housing, and we want to attract workers, we want to attract people to raise their families here, but we don't have homes to offer them. And we don't have, you know, some of the things that people would like to have, so far as proximity to downtown, choice in where they would have their home be located. We have a really tight housing crunch, so I think we need to be really proactive in developing opportunities that we have, so far as tax forfeited properties, getting those back onto the tax rolls, and some new development on those. We've got some vacant buildings that are located in the district, including Nettleton Elementary, that would love to see become housing, and that's part of the plan. But it's definitely a concern, and it's something I'm aware of and hope to work on and address as a counselor.
Great, thank you very much. Candidates Anderson and Spring, your district tends to be more suburban. Why don't you share with us your perspective of potential constituents and unique challenges in your district? Candidate Anderson, we'll start with you.
Certainly, thank you. So some of the unique challenges in the first district, I see, I think I would like to start by talking about housing. In the district, we have a whole variety of populations, from young families, a lot of young families moving into the district. We also have a large population of seniors. And something that I've seen as I've been knocking on doors from Woodland down the lakeside is that there are a lot of seniors who are very concerned about property taxes and maintenance on their homes. So a concern that I see, and I'm hoping this is something that we can address within the first district and within each unique district in the city, is to make sure that we have affordable and safe housing for our seniors. When our seniors are able to move into a safe and affordable place in their own neighborhood, it will open up their homes for more of the young families that are coming into our communities, that the kids that are filling our schools, and really stabilizing our tax base. And these young families also support our businesses in the districts. We're really fortunate in Lakeside and Woodland, Lester Park, Hunters Park, to have amazing, resilient, locally owned businesses. And these are the foundation of our community, the foundation of our neighborhoods, and they're a big part of what keeps attracting people to the community. And finally, green space. This is something that brings us incredible value for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spring.
My wife Lynn and I live in Lakeside, a little 100-year-old house with a nice yard. And living in Lakeside is like living in Norman Rockwell painting. All the kids get good grades, all the dogs are well behaved, and all the lawns look pretty nice. Love living there. I was at a meeting last Wednesday morning at North Shore Bank, where there was a meeting based on a story that a local TV station did about a supposed increase in crime, mainly in the Lakeside area. We had a local Duluth police officer there, and he told us that actually the data that they used for this story was skewed in that it was data, crime data, for a much larger area of District 1 than just Lakeside. But they took this wide area of data, and then they said it was all from Lakeside, which was completely false. It was basically a story blown out of a non-story. But I was there and talked to some local people who live there like me, and also people that own local businesses there too. For the most part, it's a terrific place to live. I love living there. I wouldn't live anywhere else in the city. I just love living in Lakeside. And also, there was one thing that came up there, and somebody brought up the idea of having a liquor store in Lakeside. I will confess to all of you, I am a nerd. I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, and I rarely drink. So to me, it's a non-issue. I don't care if there's a liquor store there or not. I drink Coke, so I just don't care. But what people there were concerned about is the fact that why is the whole city voting on that proposal of liquor in Lakeside? If it's a neighborhood issue, have the neighborhood vote on it, not the entire city. Why would we in Lakeside vote on something in Morgan Park? That doesn't make any sense. Thanks.
So Ms. Kennedy, looking toward the western part of town, and we'll get to the river corridor development consideration in a minute, but what do you feel are the biggest challenges facing the 5th District?
Thank you. For the 5th District, I would say housing as well, although there are other challenges as well. But for the housing, right now we have old housing stock and some houses that are vacant. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure we have those developments that are market rate for folks, especially some of our older generation that are wanting to stay in the neighborhoods. It's very important that we keep people there that are stewards of the neighborhood to make sure the neighborhood feels calm and safe, as well as adding new residents and new families, working families. Many families are opting not to buy homes at this point and would prefer to live in an apartment. And quite frankly, before I bought my home, I lived in an apartment, and quite a few apartments actually. And so I think that's a step up to make sure we have those market rate housings for young families, as well as our seniors who want to continue to live in the neighborhoods.
Thank you. Councilor Cypress, you've had a couple of years now in the 2nd District. What do you find are the challenges in the district that you'd like to address going forward?
First thing I'd say is the 2nd District is actually more diverse than many people realize. The district, of course, has some of the wealthier neighborhoods in Duluth, but it also has neighborhoods like Indian, which is predominantly renters, many students and younger people. We have the Kenwood neighborhood, which is again a mix of people, including a lot of middle-income working people, and of course the university neighborhood. So it really is a diverse district. One issue that, of course, is particular to the district that we've been working on for a number of years is the issue of the conversion of single-family homes to rentals. And we made a lot of progress on that issue in recent years with our new rental regulations, which have helped address some of those issues, and also with the construction of new student-oriented apartments. I want to stress that I've lived in the university neighborhood for over 20 years, and I love living there, and people who live around the university generally love having the mix of people, the mix of ages, university people, students, but we all know that when you get too much of a concentration of converted homes on a particular block, it does have an impact on the neighborhood. So we need to continue to work to provide different and better options for students. I supported the apartment development that will go on the corner of Arrowhead and Kenwood because we need that kind of housing, but I've also been willing to oppose developments that don't make sense, such as the proposed development on the corner of Lyons in Mississippi in the Kenwood neighborhood. We need more rental housing, but we need to do it in the right way and in the right place.
Thank you, Roger. Candidates Anderson and Springer, we'll start with you on this question. You touched on it a little bit for a little bit there, Mr. Springer, but this has to do with allowing liquor sales in Lakeside. It's also a citywide issue, so we'll ask the other candidates about it as well. But again, beginning with you two gentlemen, if you could talk a little bit about the history of the dry neighborhood and why it is that way, and your feelings about whether that should change. And candidate Springer, I'll be honest, I'm a little concerned when you said you don't care which way that vote goes, so we'll give you a chance. But Mr. Anderson, if you could go first, 1.5 minutes, please.
Thank you. It's a great question. So, as I understand it, this law has been in place for a good 100 years. And there, for whatever reason, I don't really know the reason it came into effect in the first place, but I do know, I'm very aware that there are people who stay in the Lakeside neighborhood because they like that it's dry, and there are also people who have moved there because they like that it's dry. So there's very historic significance to this law. With that being said, I want to say I live in Hunters Park. I love my neighborhood, and I agree with Carl Spring. I do not believe that my vote should count. I don't. If I'm elected to represent the people of the 1st District, including the precincts in Lakeside and Leicester Park, I will be paying very close attention to the results that come out of those precincts. And I'm not talking about a simple majority. It doesn't take one vote to overturn a law that's been in place for a long time. So, and I think it's really important that we listen to the people of those districts.
Thank you, Mr. Springer.
Sure. Well, Chuck, as far as being I don't care, typically on a Sunday when the Vikings come on, I've got pizza, nachos, and Coke. I'm just not a big beer drinker. So in that respect, it doesn't matter to me. It does have to be representative of what the people want. You know, we're all accessible. You can find us at work, on Facebook, Twitter, call me, text me, whatever. If I were elected, and if I find that 80% of the people that call or text or get a hold of me want liquor in Lakeside, it's my job to represent them. What I think doesn't make any difference. I'm just a voice for people in my district, of District 1. So that's what I mean when I say I don't care. On a typical Sunday, I'm drinking Coke, not beer. But if the vast majority want that, then that's my job to represent them to vote for that. I do though, and Gary and I agree on this, of course, is that there's no reason to have the whole city vote for something in Lakeside. That just doesn't make any sense. And I think that actually leads to some kind of mischief and mayhem when you have a large area forth for a small part of town. That just doesn't make any sense. In a previous lifetime, I was a realtor for a while in southern Minnesota and the Twin Cities. I do know that, look, if you put a liquor store next to my house, there will be increased traffic, increased light pollution, noise pollution, and the value of my house will go down. None of us want to see that. So it can be kind of a not in my backyard thing where you want a liquor store, you want liquor? Sure, why not? But not next to my house. That will decrease your property value for about a block to a 2-block radius around that area. So there is that to think about too. But again, I represent what the people want, not what I want.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Springer. Councilor Cypress.
So I think it's first important for everyone to understand that the referendum on lakeside liquor this November is an advisory referendum. It's not binding. Liquor sales in Lakeside will only be allowed with a change in state law. So it's up to the state to make that decision. And the state looks to the Duluth City Council to give them advice on what they should do. And so the City Council is asking the city for advice on whether we should ask the state to allow liquor sales in Lakeside. That's what the purpose of the referendum is. We have asked people citywide what they think, but for me as a councilor, I agree that the opinions of people in Lakeside matter more. And so as a councilor, I would look to the votes in the Lakeside precincts to guide me on whether I should ask the state to allow liquor sales in Lakeside. I do think, though, that people have a right to ask how their representatives will actually vote on a referendum. And so since I will be voting, and since I always vote in every office that I can, and every question I can that's on the ballot, I will say that I will be voting in favor of allowing lakeside liquor sales. Liquor sales in the city are very, very strictly regulated, and for me, allowing liquor sales in Lakeside can help us support the neighborhood business district, particularly restaurants and eateries, which are hard to maintain in the absence of liquor sales. But regardless of my personal opinion as a councilor, I will look to the residents of Lakeside to guide me in my decision on that issue.
Thank you. Janet Kennedy? Same issue? Is this a citywide issue? Do you support liquor sales in Lakeside?
Thank you. I was really intent on Joel's answer. He's a wealth of information always for me. I'm inspired by him. So the liquor sales is a key hot issue on the other side of the city from where I would be representing people. I believe and would listen to the people that live in that district, because as a city councilor, I would be having a deciding force in how that decision turns out. And so I would really still, as a district councilor in District 5, I would really take into consideration the people living out east and what the impact my decision would have on that. And so it would be a decision made by the majority of the people, as well as how Carl had stated it, and that it's important that I'm really tuned into the issue and listening, because I will have a chance to decide on it. As far as affecting the western Duluth, I think for Duluth in general, any kind of economic development is good for the city as a whole.
Very good, thank you so much. Westerland?
So I find this an interesting issue just because it is so unique to East Duluth. There's a ban in these particular precincts so far as liquor sales, and I think it's really easy to get sort of micro level and say liquor stores, and so we don't want a liquor store in Lakeside. But similar to what Councilor Cypress had mentioned, this is also about liquor licenses for our eateries, and there are several in Lakeside that may well benefit if they had the opportunity to sell alcohol with their meals. That being said, the rest of the city, we do allow liquor sales, and we know that there are challenges that come with that. I think it's important to have a balanced approach and not be sort of doom and gloom about it. Whatever way it goes, you can have a certain level of fearfulness or assumptions about what it would mean to have liquor in Lakeside, but we won't know until we know what the vote is and until we see how it's implemented. I also want to mention that I know several people in Lakeside who drink alcohol in their homes, so to say it's dry, I don't know, we're not selling it there, but people are consuming it there, generally in a responsible way, it would appear, so far as what I know rhetorically. So, I will watch this vote, I will listen closely, I will act as the majority vote, and will very likely support allowing liquor in Lakeside, simply because I think it makes sense to have a uniform code across the city. So.
It's been touched on here, but let's talk about it a little bit more, and that's what seems to be more reporting in the media about increase in crime and break-ins in Lakeside, particularly. Candidate Spring, we'll start with you, and Candidate Anderson will finish with you, since Lakeside is your district. But what needs to be done about crime? Or isn't it the escalating problem some are making it out to be? And then Candidates Kennedy and Westerland, can you please address that same question as it relates to your district? Mr. Spring?
I'm on microphone 4 now, just so. You know, with that, as I mentioned, as the officer mentioned, the statistics that were shown that morning, he had handouts for all of us, were skewed in that they were culled from a much larger area than just Lakeside. With the story that ran that night, it made it sound like it was just Lakeside. There are also a group, of course, of citizen police officers, mainly retired people, who literally drive around all night long in unmarked squad cars, somewhat marked squad cars. And these 4 gentlemen were there that morning, and they said, you know, a lot of this is because people leave the garage doors open, wide open, all night long. You can see their cars, you can see their trimmers, you can see their sports equipment. And they said, literally, if people just shut their garage doors and lock their car doors, if their cars are parked outside, it would take care of a vast majority of this reported crime. In fact, the one guy said, he went up and knocked on the guy's door. In the garage was like a Cadillac and a Lexus and a lot of expensive golf clubs. And this fellow knocked on the guy's door, and at 2 in the morning said, hey, sir, do you know that this stuff's widely, you can see it, it could get stolen. And the guy swore at him and told him to get off his yard. But these guys said that, seriously, if the people just lock their car doors and close their garage doors at night, it would take care of the vast majority of these prowls, these little crimes that are being committed. And a lot of the stuff, too, there were some broken windows at some businesses there. And the officer said that stuff wasn't even stolen. Because of the way the glass was on the floor, it was obvious that a rock or brick was thrown, just kids doing mayhem, but nothing was stolen, just senseless crime being committed. So I think that's been largely blown out of proportion. I've lived there for 5 years. My wife's lived there most of her life in Lakeside, and I think it's going to be not an issue, actually.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you. I have spent a lot of time at community meetings, and at each community meeting in the western part of Duluth, and I believe in Duluth in general, there's a police officer that does a report, a monthly report on crimes. And so when we look at crime, I think it's important to really go to the source and how it's happening and where it's happening and what type of crime that's happening. And from what I've heard, most of the crime is lower level crimes, and which may be leading to youth. And part of our problem, Duluth's problem, is we had a defunding of some of our youth programs. And so how do we look at the bigger issue of how the social problems with the youth and how some of those crimes could be decreased by just getting back to the neighborhood youth programs and some of the buildings that were lost in our flooding and things like that. And so when we do talk about crime, we also want to look at making sure our officers are supported, and if they feel that there's a need, that we really need to come together from all district counselors and at-large counselors and make a decision as to what is the best way to curb the crime. For me, I think a lot of crime, though, has to do with some of the social issues that we face in our city. And for Western Duluth is because we're geographically challenged from the main part of our rest of our neighbors. Thank you.
Very good. Ms. Westerland?
So in July, I went to a meeting in East Hillside because there have been several burglaries, daytime burglaries that have been happening to neighbors around the Chester Park area. And the meeting was well attended. There were probably 60 neighbors there, in addition to our community officer, Officer Nevenin, and Councilor Gardner and myself. And I was just there to listen and to get some of the data and to better understand what was happening. And I mean, it's a violation when you know somebody has been in your home, even if they don't take anything, or if they've been in your car. You know that feeling when you go out to your car, if you've ever had your glove compartment rifled through, it feels like a violation. It feels troubling. And I heard that night that people really wanted a response, and people were really willing to be a part of the response. And that's something that I really love about Duluth, is that people started offering. They said, you know, I'm home during the day, I'm retired. I can try to keep an eye out, you know, I can try to see, you know, if there's something kind of curious going on, watch, pay a little more attention. And I think that's the approach that we should have, and that we are seeing our police force move to. All summer long, if you were outside enjoying the beautiful Duluth weather, you saw cops on horses, talking to people, you saw cops on bikes, talking to people, you saw cops on segways, you saw cops driving around, windows down, chatting with neighbors. And I think that's the best way to sort of prevent crime. Rather than, you know, respond rashly, let's prevent it. Let's have positive relationships. Let's have opportunities for people to get to know the police and trust them so that they can come to them when something does happen. And I think that our community response in that way as neighbors and with our law enforcement is going to be the key thing that helps keep Duluth safe.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. So when it comes to the issue of crime and safety, I want to say that I believe that every counselor becomes an at-large counselor. So what happens in West Duluth and District 5 matters to the people who live in District 1 and East Duluth and in between. Last week I heard about the meeting, I heard about the issue that there is supposedly a spike in crime in Lakeside, and I actually had a meeting with Police Chief Ramsey. And it was interesting to hear his perspective, which is that the numbers were skewed. The numbers that were reported on television were reported for Lakeside, but they were really meant to be for a much larger area. But at the same time, my meeting with Chief Ramsey was really, really informative to me. I was able to find out that one of the reasons that our police force has to work so hard is because there's been an amazing increase in the number of calls for police department that end up being related with drug and mental health issues. And because of that, especially because of the mental health issues, there's become a new collaboration between the county and the city, where the county has a full-time social worker working in the police department. And I think this is an example of a powerful and effective collaboration between two different elected bodies. As far as what I hear about crime specifically in the 1st District, mostly I hear about it from single seniors. And when they hear a siren, they think that it's a crime. More often than not, it's the fire department coming to help with a medical issue.
Thank you. We'll shift to the western part of town. Candidate Kennedy, your first answer. We'll talk about the plans for the St. Louis River corridor and the half-and-half tax that was renewed to provide the funding. I'm wondering, is the city and the mayor's vision realistic, and how can we make sure that the rebirth out there happens? Candidate Kennedy?
Most importantly is being present at the table to make that rebirth happen, and working with the new mayor that's coming up and other councilors, and making sure that the half-and-half tax that was reinstituted goes towards the neighborhoods where we need it. But most importantly, we need to make sure the neighborhoods are engaged and making sure that process is honored, and how we get to the decision of what is going to happen in a specific area. I was at the urban meeting last night, and we were doing this small area plan. And so we really have sat, and this is the 3rd time I've been at that meeting with neighbors and city staff, and just making sure that everyone's being heard and that it's an equitable solution for what needs to happen in the neighborhood, but also making sure we're looking towards any growth that we make that needs to be changed, because trends change, people change, populations change. And so we need to make sure our ideas are dynamic, are stable for the time, but also will work for generations to come.
Thank you. I'll ask the other candidates, in addition to whether it's realistic and whether, what needs to be done to make it happen, how important or how critical is a revitalization, is a renewal of Western Duluth along the river corridor and the rest of the city? M. Westerland, we'll start with you.
So is it realistic? I think we're seeing that yes, it is. Our city departments have shown that they're very gifted grant writers. We've gotten several different grant opportunities that we've been able to take advantage of that are very targeted and specific to some of the Western Duluth redevelopment ideas, including trails. The Cox Group has worked with our city departments to successfully get those grant monies, along with matching grant funds. And so we're definitely seeing this incremental momentum growing for this vision of Western Duluth. I think it's a great thing for the city. I think really realizing the gift, the ecological gift that the St. Louis River is, and we're a little late to the game, but we're on it, we're working on it. We're working on getting the St. Louis River delisted as an area of concern, which it has been for 45 years. As we do that and draw people into that and bring new energy, new business, new opportunities to take advantage of the great amenities of West Duluth, I think it's just going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to sort of be a rising star. And the idea that that's not going to happen or it's impossible, I don't really understand because it already is. And we're seeing it happen. And we're seeing the excitement that people have. When I have been door knocking, people talk about they're excited about it. And I'll be honest, and they wish that there was some more energy in the District 3. So once we get West Duluth going and rocking and rolling, maybe we'll get some really cool stuff happening in the hillside as well, and that's my hope. But I think it's a win for everybody in Duluth, regardless of what district you live in. So.
Thank you very much. Candidate Anderson.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the St. Louis River Corridor project. I grew up on the St. Louis River way back in Floodwood, and it's an amazing thing to see. I spoke with friends at the Duluth Area Association of Realtors a couple of weeks back, and to hear them how excited they are at the number of homes that are turning over in Western Duluth, and the young families that are moving there, specifically because that river is cleaned up and it's becoming more accessible to everybody. And that includes the people out in East Duluth as well. So when I will enjoy going canoeing in that river, and I haven't been there yet, but I'm gonna get out there. I think it is critical that we continue to work and look at the tax base throughout the whole entire community. When we build new homes, when there are new businesses happening in West Duluth, this is going to benefit all of us throughout the whole community. At the same time, as a district representative, I want to say to the people out in East Duluth that we're not going to forget about our green spaces there, from Brighton Beach, Lester Park. There's great things happening at the Lester Amity Chalet. Hawk Ridge is an internationally known bird observatory, and of course we have the amazing amenity of Hartley Field, just blocks from my home, and the Superior Hiking Trail. So, Janet, I'm looking forward to to seeing the Western Corridor really be strengthened, because it's going to make our city richer and more of a destination for people from all over the country and all over the world.
Thank you. Finally, Carl Spring.
100 years ago, Morgan Park in West Duluth was the place to be when U.S. Steel offered hundreds of well-paying jobs. That was where you wanted to be in Duluth. That was the hot spot. Since then, of course, with the loss of all the steel jobs out there, West Duluth and Morgan Park and that whole part of town, Smithfield, everywhere out there, Gary to Duluth, has kind of gone by the wayside a little bit and been a little bit forgotten. All the emphasis now is on downtown, on old, new downtown, by the theater district now. But Duluth is unique in that it's a city that's 20 miles long and 5 miles wide. It's impossible to raise the whole city at one time. A lot of attention has been on the east part of town, central hillside, downtown, but we can't forget about the western half of our city too. It can't all be done at once, but it is starting to come back now. As far as a real estate point of view, you can get much more home for your money in the western part of Duluth than the eastern part of Duluth. Larger yards, very beautiful yards as well, especially going up the hillside. So it's a jewel that just hasn't been polished yet. We've got the opportunity. And if we can get some developers, maybe locally, but also maybe from the Twin Cities possibly, put some money, invest some time and money in there, that can just be the next jewel of Duluth right out there. So I'm not saying we can do it right away, because we can't, nothing happens that fast. But that could be where when you come in from the west side of town, you'll think, I don't need to go downtown, I like it right here. So I think it might take 25 years, but a good time to start is now. And I think, you know, when I'm an older man, that's going to be a really, really nice part of town out there. So, yeah, I'm all for it.
Great, thank you. Candidates, you know, Doug anticipated that we'd have to have some discussion this morning on the condition of our streets and our infrastructure concerns. What are your thoughts on what the new administration coming in and a new council in terms of paying for street repairs and our infrastructure needs? Candidate Westerlund, we'll start with you.
So this is a large issue. It's been a long-standing issue. It's a bit of a difficult one to unravel. We know that the answer to how are we going to repair our roads and infrastructure is not simple, it's not one-dimensional, and it's not going to come from a single revenue source. So my thoughts on this are that we need to work together as a council to determine what we can do locally here to garner some new revenues for those lost revenues that we have in order to not only overhaul our streets and our pipes and our utilities, everything under them, but how are we going to pay for the ongoing maintenance of those? And we know that you know, a regressive form of revenue, which is taxation, is not going to do it. So my hope is to leverage support locally, the county, state, and federal levels to basically make the case that here in Duluth we need some help, and we need these funds to come from a variety of sources. In the short term, we are making incremental gains. We are seeing many of our roads be redone, and they're being done right. We're doing everything under them. The Superior Street Reconstruction Project, a multi-year project, it's a great example. We're taking care of the sewers, we're taking care of the utility lines, and then we're taking care of the structure, the physical integrity of the street and the surface of the street, all at once. Cost effective, it makes sense, and that's the approach we need to have. As we go through, we want to make sure that we're taking care of things piece by piece and doing it the right way. And in the short term, prioritize what needs to be done and address it in order as it comes up in order of need. So.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Infrastructure is one issue that comes up when I'm door knocking as often as anything, and probably more often than any other issue. People talk about our streets and infrastructure and the importance of using our tax dollars wisely. I want to take a moment to, you know, for years, of course, we all know that we had an agreement with the Fond du Lac Band that brought in about $6 million a year to our community. And that agreement has been overturned by federal courts, and that fight is over, and I'm really glad that we understand that as a city. I would like to see a collaborative and cooperative relationship built with the Fond du Lac Band, and I believe that we can come to an agreement where the band will contribute a reasonable amount for the services that they receive at the casino here in town, and that we can contribute that money as a piece that Em was talking about, a piece of the monies that we need to take care of our streets. The longer that these projects are delayed, the more expensive they're going to be. We know that, so we need to move now. And I also want to point out the fact that 100 years ago, when this infrastructure that we are currently utilizing was built, the people invested a lot of time and energy, thought, and money to build that infrastructure that has been resilient for over 100 years. And this is the opportunity of our lifetime, of our generation, to pay this forward. This is what I talk about. We need to continue building for our future. And it's going to take a commitment by the whole community and a buy-in from the whole community with a solid plan to move us forward.
Thank you, Mr. Spring.
Last week, Gary and I were both at dinner downtown, Indigenous Families Harvest Dinner, and I talked to Ray Skip Sandman there. And you know, we have to remember, of course, that they were here first. They were here for hundreds of years before we were. This was their land. And I have an idea, you know, the Fond du Lac tribe, they're our friends, not our foes. And we're all sharing this space of time together. And I have an idea, I hadn't heard this one before, although maybe some of you have. You know, the one thing about the casino being downtown, parking's not easy. I know there's a ramp right there, but it's not the greatest location, actually. The old Central Hillside, or I'm sorry, the former New Central High School site up on top of the hill. Since the school district owns that and the sale of that fell through earlier this year, what I would do I would have the city, the school board of the city, offer to lease that space. It's a great location, terrific location. Lease that to the Fond du Lac tribe and have them move their casino up there. Tons of parking, great view. Everybody would know where it was. But I wouldn't sell it, but I would lease it at a very reasonable price. So in that way, the tribe gets a terrific location, lots of parking, everybody knows where it is. But the city gets something from that too. As far as then people go there, they park there, the city gets some rental income from the tribe that way. So what the tribe gains is a better location, a better parking. What the city gains is some money coming out of that site. Because right now, after the first sale fell through, it's not like there are a line of people in line afterwards to buy that property. It's just an idea I was going to throw out there.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you. Streets and infrastructure are very complex, as we have all stated. And it's going to take, we'll just say, all hands on deck. What we need to do is, I believe at this point, is separate our relationship that we need to repair with the indigenous people and separate that from the streets and our infrastructure. They have to be taken separately, and for me, I really want to make sure we're bridging that gap, or that relationship that we need to repair. So the challenges on streets and infrastructure is that we have a city that's built on a rock, and we have geographic and climate changes, or challenges, that will make it a very dynamic situation, and that we need to come together for all funding sources. We can't just rely on one revenue stream to be able to repair and maintain what we have. And so it's really going to take a lot of time, effort, all counselors, all parts of the city, all input from everyone, and making sure that we're at the table at the right time for those decisions. And when we can do that, first and foremost, we can come up with a plan and a proposal together for what needs to happen today and for our generations to come. Because our streets and roads are not going away, and neither are we.
Thank you. From one type of infrastructure to another, as everyone knows, Duluth was named Best Outdoor City by Outdoor Magazine recently. My question is whether you feel that the city is focusing too much on things like trails, things that are nice, and whether other priorities are being short-shrifted along the way. Gary Anderson, it's your turn to answer first. We'll begin with you.
Well, obviously there has been a tremendous focus on bike trails in the city in the last 8 years or so. And it's clear from talking to young families on the doors that they are really, really happy about this. But bike trails don't meet everyone's needs. The #1 consumers of our parks, our green spaces, are young people with families and older people who want to have access just to be able to walk safely on the street. So we must make sure that we have access to recreational activities for everyone, not just those who can afford to have bikes and get out on the trails. With that in mind, recently I met a woman named Siri Morse who works with the Duluth Children's Coalition, and they are working hard to make sure that our green space in Duluth is available to children across the city, no matter what their economic situation might be. And I think this is really, really critical, that we want to make sure that our neighborhood parks are there. You know, when I'm knocking on doors and a kid comes to the door with their parents, I'm really excited because I ask the kid, what do you think is the best thing about this neighborhood, and what do we need to do better? And the children, more often than not, talk about their parks. And they want to make sure that there's a swing that works in their park. So let's make sure that that money, that our green spaces are maintained. And for years and years and years, our parks maintenance budget has been slashed over and over and over again. So we need to build that back up and take care of all of the infrastructure. And you know, the good thing about the bike trails, if they're not maintained, they're going to disappear into the woods. But our parks will not disappear.
Thank you, Carl Spring.
You know, all that is a real drawing card here for Duluth. When you think about it, the tourism dollars, it comes from all over the place. People from Wisconsin, from western Minnesota, northwest Minnesota, but I think primarily from the Twin Cities. Now, I grew up in Hopkins, Minnesota. And right now in the Twin Cities, there are approximately almost 3 million people living down there. Now the traffic is so bad in the 11 County metro area that it's mayhem. Whether it's midnight or noon, traffic is terrible in all the Twin Cities on 494 and 694. People from the Twin Cities come here to escape. They come here to get away from the madness they have Monday through Friday. They come here for the lake, for the peacefulness, for the lack of traffic we have up here. And so all this is indeed a drawing card, whether you're cross-country skiing, you're bicycling, either cross-country in the woods or downtown. People come here for that. It's a very important part of this area. 12 months out of the year, you know, every season, listen, even when it's 20 below zero, you've got a blizzard going on, there are people biking. I'm not one of them, but they do. And so it's what gives this area its charm. So it is very, very important. You know, as far as all these things, you know, we're the #1 outdoor town, the #1, ski-boarding town, we're the #1, you know, this and that. To me, those titles don't really mean that much. It looks good on a resume, I suppose. But everybody that's been here, they know what Duluth stands for. They know what we're all about. They know why to come here. So those little, you know, #1, I don't find it meaningful, actually. But it is important. It's a drawing card. It's why we live here. It's why all of us live here. If you want to live in Minneapolis, you would. I did. We prefer it way better up here. And I'm not moving back. I love it up here. I'll be here forever. Yes, it is important. I think actually we're right about where we should be as far as giving funds to that.
Thanks, Carl. Janet Kennedy? A question has to do with Duluth being named Best Outdoor City, but do you feel that there's too much focus on things like trails and things that are nice at the expense of other priorities?
I would say that quality of life is important, and we need to be equitable in what that is. And so if people feel that as part of their quality of life that they would like a trail, I would say yes, if we can do it. There are many other things that people may like or not like, but I think it's in the best interest to make sure that our citizens and our neighbors are happy with what they have and what's going on in the city. It's really no fun to just work and pay for streets and roads. And so, I mean, life can get quite boring, actually. So I think we really need to think about the social aspect of how people live in their neighborhoods and want to feel that they're connected to their neighborhoods. And so I believe it is important. And so with each group, there is that importance. And how do we come together and make a decision on, and that we cannot do everything for everyone. And so there has to be a set of a priority, and that's done collaboratively for all neighborhoods. And so trails, I could say, are important. But I guess I would maybe go to another community meeting and somebody may say a cross-country ski trail is important too. So we just need to make sure we're being fiscally smart about how we're spending the money and what we can do as far as the amenities. Because there are other priorities such as streets and roads. But we don't live to build streets and roads. We live to have fun in our lives and have neighbors to enjoy things with, and our families.
Thank you. Candidate Westphal.
So I just want to sort of clarify, I think that there's an idea in the public that all of these new trail developments, especially the bike trail developments, are coming from taxpayer dollars. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of those funds are actually grants that have been awarded to the city, and we're utilizing some of the half-and-half tourism tax dollars to match those grants. And those half-and-half tourism tax dollars can only be utilized for certain projects, including new tourist developments, which would be these trails. So I also want to say that there's a lot of volunteerism and volunteer hours and efforts of our neighborhood groups, including COGS, but also Superior Hiking Trail Association, the Friends groups of Hartley Nature Center, who provide an invaluable service to our green spaces and parks and trails. And the taxpayer dollars are a very small amount of some of that, the new developments that happen. A lot of it is volunteer driven. And so I want to acknowledge that. I want to say that, that I think that that's a misconception, that we have to have one at the expense of the other. We're really seeing great energy for these projects. We know that people want new trails, and not just bike trails. You can look at the Beacon Point connection on the Lake Walk. The Lake Walk is beloved. That project does cost a little bit of money, but how many user groups is that satisfying? How many people is it bringing down to the lake? How many people are recreating on foot or on bike or rollerblades, whatever you like to do? I mean, that's another great example of something that's been fantastic for Duluthians. It will also draw in tourists and future Duluthians. And so I think it's great to sustain our investments, and I'm very supportive of it.
Great, thank you very much. Well, we're nearing the end of our time together, but we want to take a couple minutes to have some closing remarks. To our broadcast partners, we're going to run over the top of the hour just a bit, but we would like to hear from the candidates as we wrap up this morning's discussion. Candidate Spring, we'll start with your final thoughts.
Okay. I'm running for City Council, District 1, and there are three things that drive me. My God, my family, and my country. I have no agenda. I'm not supported by any organized group. There's nobody I have to look in the eye if I should win and say, thank you, I'll do your bidding because I'm taking your money. If you want to vote for me, vote for me. But vote for me because of who I am and what I represent, not because I'm backed by anybody. I'm not backed by anybody. My wife and friends, I guess, and a few of you I see here. But that's why I'm running. I've always taught my kids, and my stepkids too, to give back to your community. Take from your community, enjoy it. Love living here, but give back. Leave it better than it was when you got here. If you can offer, for instance, I used to flood my kids' hockey rinks at Compton, did that for a number of years before I started playing indoors. You know, give back in some way. Volunteer, help out. My son Cal works at a home where people that have traumatic brain injuries. And yes, he gets paid for that, as many college students do. But you know what? That's a job I couldn't do. It takes incredible patience. But give back to your community. And that's what I want to do. And that's why I'm running. I'm running because I just want to give back to my community and to my world. And because God told me at this point in my life, do it. Give it a shot. 20 years ago when my kids were 2, 4, 6, 8, I wasn't about to miss that part of their life. But now, they're all out on their own. They're all doing their own thing. And my wife said, good grief, we finally have some room in our lives, some time in our lives, and now I'm doing this. But I feel like it's time. And ironically, I got out of TV weather because it was too political. And here I go, getting into politics. Go figure. And finally, I want to say to every one of you here today, you've been a marvelous audience. I haven't seen one fist fight break out. You've been really well behaved, and I appreciate that. And if you feel like it, if you would like to, I appreciate your support on November 3rd. But you know what, everybody here, I've got to know all these people. I wish we could all win, because I like and respect all of you. I ran into Gary twice on Sunday. We're all handing out cards in the same part of town. I'm like, are you serious? District 1's the size of Alaska, and we're on the same street. But again, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. Ms. Kennedy, final thoughts?
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited about the changes that are going to happen for Duluth. And that, as Carl said, it is time. I've been saying that since I started this campaign, and really excited in the changes that can happen. You know, again, I'm a person that likes to really sit back and think about things for a while, and then I come up with this big writing sort of spurt. But anyways, I came up with the role and service that a city councilor actually needs to do and be, you know, and it's because it's through the mechanics for which decisions are derived, through the things that improve our lives. And also for me, what that means is being present to find the solutions, to be the change that we all want to see in our communities. And so that's I think the first and foremost and the most important thing that a city councilor can do. And for Western Duluth, it's really time for that to happen today. And so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Westerland.
So as I mentioned at the beginning, I've always been an advocate whether I liked it or not, and this goes back to high school. I was always concerned about people who didn't have the same things that I had, or, you know, I could see inequalities, and I was learning about social inequalities, and this is around the time, it's going to date me, but around the time of the Iraq War being declared. And I was just so overwhelmed by this, you know, I just felt myself so concerned. Why was this happening? And over time, I've just seen, you know, I'm very concerned about social issues. I'm very concerned about people having a shared quality of life, all people. And even though that was sort of my entry point in high school, coming now to where we are now, you can look around your neighborhood and you see that there's these same inequalities. You see that there are decisions that are being made that impact everyone, but have some people experience disproportionate impacts based on who they are, their class status, whether they have a job or not, whether they have a home or not. There's a lot of work to do here. Don't get me wrong, we are doing fantastic things in Duluth. I'm very proud to live in Duluth. I'm very excited about the future of Duluth. I think we're going to continue to do great things. But my prerogative as a city councilor, as you're asking for your support, is that I want to make sure that everyone shares in those gains, that everybody is heard, that we're really thinking through the decisions that we're making, because these are going to be major decisions with consequences that play out for years to come. Let's make sure everyone's at the table. Let's make sure everyone has a voice at the table. And as an advocate for the people of District 3, that's my intention and hope. And I do ask for your support November 3rd. I will work hard. I will listen to you all. I am available. I'm responsive. I'm friendly. And so, for what it's worth, I think that I can be a really strong team player on this future council with our future mayor and help ensure that Duluth helps to enfranchise all of our residents. Thanks.
Thank you. Final thoughts, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. First, I want to thank my fellow candidates. I really appreciate all of you being here. And I want to say to the people of the community that I wish there were opposition candidates up here for every one of us. We all need to be involved. That's how our community stays strong and grows stronger. We have challenges ahead of us. Of course, dealing with our infrastructure, and that basic need is an incredible challenge. But I think a bigger challenge that we all must address is the fact that 20% of our population in Duluth lives in poverty. That's kids and seniors from Lakeside and Lester Park to Morgan Park, every community in our city. And we must make sure that the basic needs of every citizen are addressed, not the needs of everyone, not the wants of some. If I'm elected to represent the people of the first district on the city council, I will use common sense, I will use compassion, and I will be committed to serving every citizen in the district, whether they agree with me politically or not. It's a real privilege to be here. Being active in politics is the most challenging and the most satisfying thing that I've ever done. It's grown me into a person that some days I get up and I hardly recognize myself, but I say, yes, this is me, and I can do this. I've been involved in community service all my life, and I'm really excited for the challenge of serving on the Duluth City Council, and I really encourage the people of the first district. I ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you very much.
Very good, thank you. And we'll have to leave it there, candidates. Thanks for your respectful discussion this morning. Good luck on the campaign trail. Thanks to our partners at the Duluth News Tribune for their support. Thanks especially to our friends at the Underground here at the Playhouse for their gracious hosting of this event. And that will be the end of our time together this morning. Thanks for being here.